Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. I'm Peter Gross, co-host of the original Wild Kingdom with Marlin, Perkins, and Jim Fowler. In the early days of filming wildlife, as you'll see tonight, researchers had to capture animals in order to observe and learn from them. But that's no longer the case today. Modern technology such as drones and satellite tracking offer new ways to study animals in their natural habitat with less intrusion from human touch. Wild Kingdom set the gold standard for nature programming and introduced generations of young people to the wonders of the natural world. Fortunately, the successful research that began with our original series helped many animals make a comeback from the threat of extinction. And that's good news for the Wild Kingdom. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
From the beautiful and world-famous St. Louis Zoological Gardens, here is the director of the zoo, Marlin Perkins.
Hello. Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. You know, we tend to think of the wild places in this world as tucked away on some other continent, such as the jungles of the Amazon or darkest Africa or some remote place in Asia. And yet, in southern Florida, within a stone's throw of plush resort hotels and crowded cities, is a wilderness area remote enough to provide a stronghold for animals such as this puma. It's an area that covers 5,000 square miles of freshwater sawgrass swamp, interspersed with beautiful tree islands and hammocks that extends from Lake Okeechobee on the north to the southern tip of Florida. You may think the puma plays the same dominant role in the Everglades as he does in the Rocky Mountain regions of the western part of the United States. But it's a different story in the Everglades.
Of course, most of the animals found in the Everglades are no match at all for the puma, especially the common opossum, who doesn't bother challenging anyone, and the very common raccoon. This little guy is about a month old. But Marlin, if you will hold the raccoon a moment, there is one animal that dominates the puma. You better stay back, Possum. And that's the alligator. When you consider that this gator, when it grows up, might be 12 feet long and weigh 1,000 pounds, you can see how she dominates and rules all the animals of the glades.
For that reason, the alligator is our choice as Queen of the Everglades, a region that is still a province of the Wild Kingdom, and one that man finds almost impossible to travel through. I found it much easier to travel over it. My transportation was provided by my friends of the Florida Game and Freshwater Fish Commission. The pilot put me down on dry ground, which isn't too easy to find in these parts, and where the sawgrass was only about as tall as I am. In some places it grows to a height of 12 feet. I wanted to look into this alligator nest, but first I wanted to be sure the mother wasn't going to interfere. The female alligator forms her nest by building a mound of leaves, roots, grasses, and mud. She then lays her eggs on the mound, usually 20 or 30 of them, and then she covers the eggs with the same material and packs it down. Thus the decaying vegetable matter turns the nest into an incubator. Since there were no signs of the eggs hatching, I covered them up again. Mother's den, of course, was nearby, and although I didn't see her, I knew she probably wasn't far away. But you don't have to travel very far in the Everglades to find an alligator, and to be reminded that you're an intruder in its territory. An alligator doesn't swim so much as it sculls, with sinuous movements of its powerful tail. The head of an alligator is constructed so that they can remain just below the surface with only eyes and nostrils above water. For all their size, they can move with hardly a ripple and steal up on unsuspecting prey. Fish are the principal food, although those massive jaws are capable of trapping almost any kind of an animal. As I watched one particularly handsome female leave the water, I found my mind traveling back to the Mesozoic era, when reptiles ruled the earth. Here in the Everglades, she is still the monarch, and her throne is her nest. Just look at that fearsome mouth. The sharp teeth are designed not for chewing, but for seizing prey. And at the back of that broad tongue is a valve used just like a floodgate to keep water from rushing down the throat. Each year, the herons, egrets, and ibis, and scores of other birds return to the same rookeries. Once slaughtered almost to extinction for their feathers, the egrets are now protected in sanctuaries, where a bountiful supply of fresh fish await the lightning strikes of their long bills. All in all, the Everglades is a good place not to be a fish. Another expert fisherman is the otter, the fastest swimmer of all mammals found in the fresh waters of North America. Playful is the word for otters, and they're active all the time, day and night. Baby alligators seem to have two strong instincts, to head for the water and to snap at anything that comes close. It's hard to say just what the otter's intentions are. Does he want a meal, or is he just out for fun? From one reptile to another, the turtle's defenses are pretty hard to crack, but still the otter can make sport of it. In the Everglades, the diamondback rattlesnake has developed aquatic habits. It enters the alligator's territory, but does so at its own peril. The fleet-footed deer is probably least in danger. Yet no animal is completely safe around a gator hole. Still, in times of drought, nearly all of them will be forced to rely on these private reservoirs as their only source of water. This possum is one of the animals in the Everglades that might have to depend on the alligator for a source of water someday. I've often been asked, how do you tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile? Well, you don't play any part in that. I think the best way to make that comparison is to put two of them side by side right here on the table. What do you say, Jim?
Well, I'm willing to try it, but I can't speak for this crocodile. He's getting a little bit large.
Well, if you got a good hold on him, he's rougher than this little alligator. I'll put him right alongside.
I think the best way to tell the difference between the alligator and the crocodile is to look at their snouts. The crocodile has a fairly long, slender snout that's sort of pointed on the end, whereas the alligator, the snout is much shorter, broader, and sort of rounded on the end.
There's a technical difference, too, that herpetologists use. Let me see if we can change their position slightly so I can demonstrate that. Has to do with the fourth tooth of the lower jaw. In the crocodile, you can see that tooth even though his jaw is closed, because it fits into a little open notch in the side of the upper jaw. But in the alligator, that fourth lower tooth cannot be seen when his mouth is closed, because it fits into a little pocket in his upper jaw that conceals it.
Well, if you run across these in the wild, this question seems a little bit beside the point, doesn't it?
Well, I would think so. Anybody running into one or the other and didn't know what they were, I certainly wouldn't start counting teeth, but I'd back off and look at the whole situation because their jaws and their tails can be pretty dangerous.
Well, even the little ones could be mighty scrappy, I can tell you. I found that out one day when I was walking around a pond looking for alligators. First, I spotted a big gator lying submerged not far from the bank. And then I almost stepped on a baby gator who was heading for the water in front of me. I could tell by its size that it had probably just hatched and came out of the nest that was not far away. I realized that I was in a dangerous situation in more ways than one. When the baby gator gave his distress call, I knew I'd better get out of there fast. After her instinct to protect her young subsided a bit, I was able to chase her back into the water, at least for a while. I wanted to see the nest, and it wasn't hard to find. Before opening it, I wanted to be sure that Mama Gator would stay put. I knew it wouldn't hurt to open the nest up, because that's exactly what the female gator would do a little later on. However, she didn't seem to appreciate my help. Most of the young ones were ready to leave the nest, but a few were still trapped inside the egg. I had to keep an eye on the female, but ouch! The attack came from below, and it also looked like it might come from the pond as well. So I decided to cover up the nest, leaving the material loose so the rest of the babies could easily make their way out. The female wasted no time in going to the nest to see that all was well. On the way out, I spooked a deer, who bounded off, white flag flying.
A swamp buggy is just about the best vehicle for exploring the Everglades. I went out with Lou Gainey, regional manager for the Florida Game and Freshwater Fish Commission. Again, birds dominated the scene. This is the great wood ibis. Here's the egret, whom many would call the beauty queen. The purple gallinule seems panic-stricken when it comes into land, but it's quite sure-footed in walking about on lily pads looking for insects. The stilt is certainly aptly named, for it does indeed seem to be walking on stilts. And here's the great blue heron, the largest American heron, with a 6-foot wingspread. The great bird populations are here during the rainy season. Many have moved on by the time the dry season arrives. Then those that remain must find water where they can. So it is that the alligator unwittingly becomes their benefactor. For in digging her den, she taps the subterranean water supply, creating a small water hole which becomes a concentration point for all of the animals of the Everglades. While we were observing here, a wood ibis approached. As the water level drops, fish are left on the bank, so the ibis finds the water hole a convenient source of food as well as water. As long as the alligator elects to lie on the top of her nest, it's safe for the other animals to enter the water. The wood ibis, by the way, isn't really an ibis. It's a stork, the only stork found in the United States. Its bare head has inspired several nicknames such as Iron Head, Gourd Head, and Spanish Buzzard. Quite suddenly, a possum appeared on the scene. Possums frequently tear open alligator nests and eat the eggs. But today, the nest was being guarded. The ibis hung around for quite a while until it was frightened off by a young puma. The puma should have been with its mother, but must have wandered off, led on by its natural curiosity. Another visitor was a coach whip snake, a real speedster on land and in water. The puma kitten didn't know exactly what to do about it. Lying on a log, the snake is well camouflaged, as it keeps a sharp lookout for a tasty mouse, lizard, or frog. Our patience in continuing these observations of this water hole was rewarded one day with this little parade of mallards, a handsome drake and 2 hens. It seemed more like a barnyard scene, except that this particular duck pond could have been mighty hazardous for them. But they didn't stay long, and they were wise to leave. The Queen of the Everglades was returning. Another kitten that seemed to be exploring on its own was a young bobcat. He was peacefully enjoying a fish dinner when along came a young gator about a year old. Asking for trouble, he got it. We've shown how the alligator provides water for most of the animals of the Everglades, yet at the same time is their deadly enemy. This little baby raccoon is a good example of an Everglades dweller who would be in serious danger near an alligator hole, but then his mother's always standing by to protect him. Jim, does that look familiar to you?
It sure does.
You may have seen bandana handkerchief used for many things, but did you ever see one used as a blindfold for a deer? It's quite a trick.
Yeah, but the real trick is to first catch the deer.
You're so right. You catch deer in order to tag them with markers like this to maintain scientific investigations of their movements and population changes. Skimming over the grassy shallows like a surfboard, an airboat is the only vehicle that can overtake a deer in the Everglades. Again, working with the Florida Game and Freshwater Fish Commission, Jim rode out to the capture area at speeds just under 100 miles per hour, while I went by helicopter. Our job in the chopper was to find and track the elusive deer. Fortunately, the pilot, Cossie Conrad, was an old hand at this. We were in radio contact with Jim and Area Supervisor Tom Shirley. Their job was simply to catch the deer. The deer's protective coloration and his natural instinct to remain hidden made our job one of looking for a needle in the haystack being one of the largest swamplands in the world. Now, in a helicopter, you don't just sneak up on a deer. By the time we'd spotted one, he was already running from us. The chase was on.
We had to rely on the chopper to guide us because from the airboat our field of vision was strictly limited. One thing we knew, that deer would frequently change direction, cut back and do anything but run in a straight line. when we spotted the deer from the airboat did I realize fully what I'd let myself in for. These Everglades deer can really run through water and mud, and our assignment was to drive up alongside, jump off, and bulldog the deer. This was going to be fun. Just as I thought we were on him, again he made a sharp turn. This time we made it. Here we go.
Although bulldogging a deer is fine sport, it's done for a serious purpose. The deer is blindfolded to quiet him down as much as possible, so he won't injure himself or the men by thrashing about. I acted as census taker for the day in this continuing population study. As many deer as possible are being tagged so that an accurate record can be kept of the size of the herd from year to year. Measurements are taken and estimated age is recorded. These Everglades white-tailed deer are a special race. Living in marshy terrain, their hooves remain large and sharp. They don't wear down as do those of deer that travel on hard soil. Part of the program here is the study of the movement of the herds within the Everglades. Once the blindfold was removed, he would be free to go his way, to play his part in helping these men who were dedicated to helping him and his species survive. Jim, since watching you bulldog those deer, I've been wondering, have you ever thought of joining the rodeo circuit?
Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, I've thought twice about it, and I've decided to stick with zoology. But if I go to the Everglades again, I may take those boots back there and a face mask, too.
The population of the United States is increasing at a rate of approximately 3 million persons a year. To make room for these millions, swamps are drained, forests are cleared, mountains are leveled. As cities grow, the wilderness shrinks. Such areas as the Everglades remain the last sanctuaries of our animal population. The domain of the alligator remains wild and unspoiled today because of the far-sighted and devoted work of conservationists. The Audubon Society, the Florida Game and Freshwater Fish Commission, the National Park Service, and many others. Their fight has been a long one, and it knows no end, for many people seem to regard animals as nothing more than roadblocks set against the march of civilization. If the Queen of the Everglades is to survive, she will need your help to preserve her realm and to keep it forever a part of the wild kingdom.
Like what you saw? Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more exclusive content. And visit our website at wildkingdom.com.